Hi, welcome to TrekTrav. This is Ribbit 117. I am TrekTrav. This is our Star Trek Voyager review of what the hell is the episode called? Parallax. We are here with our juices because energy drinks are bad for us. We chose one sugar over another.
Fructose is so much better.
So, overall, this episode is good in one way and bad in another.
Yeah. I reckon it's good in all ways.
So we'll get into the story. So basically, the story starts off with B'Elanna punching the other lieutenant in the face.
You don't see that. You just see them in medical bay with a Starfleet lieutenant having his nose broken.
Yes.
And being a whingy little bitch.
Yes, and the doctor's being rude and abrasive, which is always entertaining. I preferred he stayed like that, to be honest. And we find out B'Elanna and him had an argument about what was going on in engineering. Chakotay sort of, you can see in his face he's a bit annoyed. He goes to Tuvok later on and goes, look, keep this under hush. I'll deal with this. We'll make it work. They have a meeting to discuss the shortages in the staff.
Yes.
And Chakotay brings up the fact that B'Elanna should be the chief engineer.
Or at least in a running.
And Janeway's reaction is pretty much, what the fuck?
She got kicked out of fucking Starfleet, basically.
Well, she doesn't say that, but she sort of...
She dropped out. No, she dropped out.
She's like, you mean the one who had the altercation with Lieutenant Carey in engineering? And Chakotay's like, yes, but I know B'Elanna, she's a really good engineer. And we get sort of built up on this tension. The doctor is sort of there in peripheral. They're sort of talking about replacing him with a human. We find out Tom Paris is going to be his nurse. I think that lasted.
No, field officer.
Yeah, medic field officer. Neelix and Kes joined the meeting.
Yeah, they just kind of barge in.
Yeah, and Kes wants to start a hydroponics bay. Neelix wants to start a kitchen. And Chakotay obviously wants to go speak to B'Elanna and tell her.
Trying to recommend B'Elanna.
So when he speaks to B'Elanna, she's angry at Carey. I think this was actually before the meeting. She was angry at Carey. They had a big argument, and Chakotay's like, I'm going to put you forward as the chief engineer. And my first thought was, yes, because that makes sense. She's just punched someone else, a fellow officer, in the face, a court-martial offence, as Tuvok told us, and you're going to put her forward. And I was a little bit like, that's not very realistic.
Oh, do we want to continue with the realistic things in this episode?
But the one thing that was introduced in this episode was Seska. I don't know if you noticed Seska, but Seska was like one of the other Marquis officers.
Yeah,
the Marquis are talking about standing up for B'Elanna and taking the ship, and Chakotay sort of shoots them down. Yeah. To be honest, that would have been a much more interesting storyline. But like Seska's there, and Seska becomes more important as the show goes on. But that whole tension between the Marquis and Chakotay and Janeway and Starfleet, it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of tension there because they were just at war. Like, they were basically just about to get arrested by Voyager, and the Marquis are just like, now we're part of this crew, what the fuck?
Yeah, and it makes sense for there to be tension. It makes sense for Janeway to be apprehensive, Chakotay to be apprehensive. But it seems quite weird to me that tension's dissipated very fast. Like, I think it would have been more interesting if Chakotay was a bit more sort of angry at it.
Yeah, but like at the same time, it is mentioned in like the episode that Chakotay has Starfleet experience. He's been through it. He has command experience. Like, so he has a different perspective on it, where it's like he doesn't hate the Starfleet, and
he just went to fight for something that he believed in.
Yeah.
At the same time, so the ship starts shaking. There's an anomaly. They see a ship in the anomaly, and the ship doesn't at all look like Voyager from the very first scene.
It just looks like a blurry smudge.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going, I immediately know the story because it looks like Voyager in the view screen. Yeah. I don't know whether that's just because clarity on TV is better now.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. Well, we're watching on a 50-inch TV.
Like, so the episode
becomes... It was made for like 30-inch TV.
The episode becomes all about saving this ship. They get a message from the ship, which I don't know whether it's the same thing again. I instantly recognized Janeway's voice. Like it was very, I was like, oh, you're really not playing this mystery very well.
Yeah, but I think that whole idea about it is okay. It's an okay reason to be there.
Well, so
with everything else that's going to go on in the episode.
So with this going on, Chakotay contacts B'Elanna to try and work out a way of saving these people. And Captain Janeway gives him the look that so many husbands have seen in their lives of just like, what the fuck are you doing?
You just stepped on my motherfucking toes.
You're stepping on my motherfucking toes. And she calls Carey and asks if that idea will work. And then she says, I'll speak to you. And there's a pretty good discussion in the office there. I enjoyed the sort of heated debate about their feelings in regards to it.
I do like that Janeway, she's very by the book at this point in the show, and she's very much like, I'm going to pull you aside. I'm not going to pull you down in front of everyone. I'm gonna bring you aside and I'm gonna talk to you and tell you that you fucked up just then.
Yeah, and it's also very clear that neither of them are entirely wrong.
No,
because Janeway's sort of going, well, this woman hasn't trained. She didn't finish Starfleet Academy. She can't control her temper. She can't deal with people. How am I supposed to put her in that role? Chakotay goes, I know she's a great engineer. I know that she can do this, but I just need you to see that. The one problem would be that she punched another officer in the face.
Yeah, she should there should be a repercussion for that, but it seems like there is zero repercussions.
Look, I get that they've got to be together on a long voyage.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think promoting her is what gets you there.
Well, she's not being promoted at this point. So she's still in the running too, but it's a sort of situation where Chakotay goes to Janeway and says, hey, you need to get to know her. You need to be hanging around her for a little bit.
Because she has no idea what she's like. She just sees what she's acted like and she's heard things. So when she actually tries to get to know B'Elanna, Janeway pushes a few buttons and then B'Elanna pretty much just goes, fuck it, and walks off. I don't want to be a part of this. I hate being a part of it.
Yeah. But that's just sort of that's the whole getting to know you thing, and I think Janeway does this stuff on purpose, where she tries to push people's buttons to try and figure out what they're all about.
Yeah, I don't know whether she did it on purpose, but I certainly think that the way for Janeway in a motherly way, which is what Janeway ultimately becomes, is she sort of tests those boundaries and then she sort of sees the real person underneath and then she can build up from that. And I think that's one thing that makes her very different from, say, Picard or Sisko.
But these sort of dynamics weren't really explored. A lot of these dynamics were not explored within, TNG and also Deep Space Nine.
So the end of TNG became very much like Voyager in terms of this episode in particular is another one of those episodes, you might see this in my Enterprise reviews, where the focus of the main plot is on the emotional drama between B'Elanna and Chakotay and Janeway and the science alien thing of the week.
Technobabble.
Yeah, the technobabble thing
so much
is sort of in the back pedal. And I like that it sort of moves along from that. Do you want to explain what the anomaly is, or do you want me to explain it?
It's a singularity, so they're basically accidentally got themselves stuck in a singularity in the event horizon of a black hole.
And it's like a temporal singularity.
Yeah.
So it essentially, the message that was sent was them. They are caught in the thing. When they try and go to help, they realize this. Now they have to escape this singularity. And
they still don't have any clue that they are actually stuck in this thing.
Yeah, they didn't have any clue they were stuck into this thing until they started measuring it. And I do like seeing, there was a scene, going back to the emotional plot, where Harry's trying to gossip with Tuvok about the Maquis and stuff. I really like that. I do feel like Tuvok gave up way too easily in dealing with the Maquis.
Yeah. But then again, also Harry in that same scene just randomly gets a headache and he's like, oh, my head, I can't think.
On that note, we get our C plot, which is the anomaly is causing people to feel funny. and it's causing the Doctor to shrink.
He becomes a midget.
He becomes very, very small. But there's a really good scene with Kes, which is she's literally the first one in the episode, because when he asks for repairs or when he's trying to talk to people, they're sort of dismissive of him. But Kes sort of comes in and she wants to sort of talk to him emotionally, and she goes, "Oh, what did she say to him?"
She was asking about dirt for her hydroponic garden, and she's talking to him, and she's like, "You seem very sensitive."
Yeah, you're very sensitive, aren't you? And it sort of takes him aback because she's empathized with him and sort of nailed him on the head. And I think it's one of those things that he kind of missed later on, because Kes is she's the only character who could do that. I think any of the other characters are a bit too involved in like the sciencey world of the holograms, or like Neelix are a bit self-involved. And I think Kes is the only one who's a bit more empathetic. Yeah,
she's super empathetic. Like, she's a very much, in this first couple episodes, or in this first real episode, because I don't really count the part 1, part 2 is the first episode. I feel like that's really just an entree.
It's a 2-part episode.
But anyway, she's very much just the Diana Troy of Voyager. That's what she's trying to. That's what they were trying to do.
She comes across as the Diana Troy of Voyager, but I'd say done better. Because if you watch a first season TNG, Diana's always like, "I feel he's hiding something," or "Oh, great pain," and it's too much.
Yeah,
it's like there's no detachment. Whereas Kes seems a little bit like, no, she's just trying to understand what's around her. It's not about her sensing the emotions of him. It's about her sort of reacting to how he's acting in a human way.
Yeah.
And I think that's and I know that in the first episode they didn't really introduce the Doctor, they didn't really touch on him.
No.
But in this episode it was about, you start to see the beginnings of that growth, even though all of the other crew members give zero shits.
Yeah, like they actually don't. Like, he calls Janeway during the entire thing going on, being like, "Hey, I'm shrinking here. I need some help."
They have genuine enjoyment at him getting smaller. Like Tom Paris is smiling, and it is funny and it's a bit wacky. But it was just sort of, it was a nice little C plot, but that Kes moment was really good.
Yeah.
So the story culminates in B'Elanna coming up with an idea, Janeway needing to do the idea, Tom Paris volunteers to fly, but Janeway needs to go on the mission apparently because she has an understanding of temporal mechanics. Don't know how that works.
I don't know why they ignored immediately that the captain isn't meant to go on a away mission.
Because you can't have they did it, literally TNG got less and less like that. You can't have your main character out of the action all the time.
Yeah, but like literally second episode in.
I think by the time they got to Voyager, it was a very different style of show anyway to beginning TNG.
Also, we haven't mentioned about how Neelix is explaining exactly what's going on to Cass, and just like gets stopped halfway through his entire.
Yeah, well, he's explaining what the subspace anomaly is, and I'm going, oh, they're trying to do a POV thing, and then he gets cut off by Tuvok with more technobabble.
Yeah,
which is
complete and utter technobabble.
I think Voyager tried to start sort of afresh, but I think it did get trapped in that techno-babbliness.
Oh no, it's really thick in the techno-babble.
Yeah.
Particularly in this episode, it's really thick in it, and I feel like there was a moment there where they could have started using Neelix as sort of the explainer.
Yeah.
And he could have just been the guy that's just there explaining shit.
Well, so the realization basically is, from Chakotay and Janeway's point of view, is basically they're both treating their own crews like their own crews.
Yeah,
and they can't really do that.
Well, I don't think that Chakotay's trying to do that. I think he's just he is actually trying to integrate as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but he's trying to, I don't know how to put it. He's trying to integrate while being sort of sensitive to, sort of telling Janeway, look, you're not going to get people's respect unless you respect those people. And I think Janeway's a bit like, well, my crew have done all the work. Yours is literally, we're just rebels and terrorists.
Which is, I think it's the wrong way to look at it.
I think if it took longer, I think if that integration took a bit of time, like it does feel like in this episode, B'Elanna's the only one causing problems. And it's like...
And then she's just given all the
there was 15 or 16 marquee people. I can't remember. There were quite a few marquee people, but half of them are just doing their job. They don't care. And it just seemed really, really weird that prospect of tension between them keeps getting knocked down really fast.
Yeah.
Like this episode had Chakotay and Janeway's tension, and it was palpable when they were in the scene. Like Chakotay doesn't act like that in season 7 because Robert Beltran pretty much gave up by then.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, you could see he was right into that discussion him and Janeway were having. But yes, we get to the end of the episode, and B'Elanna has an idea. Janeway needs to go along. She takes B'Elanna. They have a talk, and Janeway mentions that one of her Starfleet professors, or a lot of her Starfleet professors, really thought she was amazing and supportive. And they sort of reach an impasse where there's a mutual respect and understanding, and you definitely see that she's going to be chief engineer, even though I still think she didn't deserve it.
Yeah, I feel like that there should have been a couple more episodes where she got a bit more tested, and that she should have been tested a bit more than like one thing that she, like, yeah, cool. They had like Janeway and B'Elanna had that really cool moment where they started like just syncing, like they straight up synced and they started fucking working out the problem. And that goes back to Janeway's sort of engineering background and stuff like that.
If they had bonded them over a few episodes, I think that really would have made you go, okay, I understand. Or even just showed that she had skills that were better than Lieutenant Carey.
Yeah.
Like, just show that she had more knowledge or something like that. Instead of putting it in one episode.
I reckon like a science competition or something weird like that, like where they're like competing, like they're actively competing on two different projects.
They are grown adults.
So what? Like this would have been a really cool way of doing it where they work on two different things.
You don't need a science competition. You just need a situation that requires thinking in a different way, and one of them does and one of them doesn't. But from this episode and thinking back, like I think this is where sort of my B'Elanna is the stronger character.
Oh, she's a strong character.
Well, she's tough, she's abrasive, but she's also got a big heart. And I think I grew up with a lot of people like that, so it's a bit like instantly related to that. Chakotay, not so much, but I think that dynamic between Chakotay and B'Elanna and Chakotay and the captain, this is where it begins.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're trying to make the hole bigger, yeah?
There is a hole where they came in from this anomaly, and they're trying to get out of the anomaly. And they can only stretch it open with a shuttlecraft, of which they insert themselves. No, sorry, they fire a beam at.
Yeah.
Open it up. Then they have to pick which Voyager is the real Voyager and have a discussion. And then eventually B'Elanna has to learn to trust Janeway's decision.
Yeah.
And they luckily choose the right Voyager, otherwise 2 episodes.
Well, I love that B'Elanna's reaction to being forced and really not having a choice in the situation, being like, well, we're going to have a long time.
Yeah, a long time to argue about it.
To debate about this.
And I think it's a really good way of establishing B'Elanna as a character. I think it really introduced a lot of the Doctor stuff. I think Chakotay, there's so much potential in the beginning for Chakotay's character, and because I've watched the series before, it just makes me sad. It's like,
yeah, but there's a lot of the groundwork there. All the characters so far have been good.
Oh,
like every single character, even Neelix, is stupid and
that's what we saw in this episode. We also saw the first inklings of Tom flirting with Cass. And Neelix getting jealous.
Yeah, he gave her
the chair, and Neelix immediately looks at him. And I was like, oh no, jealous Neelix is the worst Neelix.
Yeah, but I think that's more so at that point in time. I don't think that would be Tom's showing his way. I think he's just that kind of guy
where he's very much flirting. If you think he was flirting in this episode, make sure to tell us. But he was very much flirting. He was like, here's my chair.
No, he was just being that kind of gentleman.
Was he?
Yeah,
because we know from the first episode he's
some guys give their chair up to the woman. You know,
they do.
There's no other seat.
It wasn't him giving up the chair.
If they are the lowest ranked person.
It wasn't him giving up the chair. It's how he said he would give up to you. He was like, oh, here you go, my lady. Like, he was really like too much. Creepy much.
Yeah, I don't know. Some guys are just a bit gentlemanly like that.
So overall, what did you think of this episode?
This episode is an episode that is perfect for episode 2.
Yeah.
It establishes all the characters and sort of brings you into what Voyager's going to be.
It sort of establishes, also with the Doctor, it's establishing a character that didn't really get time in the pilot. So it's sort of, and the same with Kes, there wasn't a lot of time to sort of explore them as characters other than plot points. So having that come in, I think it's really sad. It's really sad for me watching these marquee episodes, and I'm thinking what they needed actually was a continuing storyline. Like a proper continuing storyline.
There's arcs. There is overarching arcs, but they're not really connected.
Well, and they also talk about how the resources are getting low and they're running out of things. And I sit there and I go, but that really never comes into play. It's like they almost wanted to do it and then they just sort of stopped.
Yeah, I feel like at the time, I feel like that would have been a bit hard because, like, when you think of Star Trek, you think that they're in the future they can work it all out.
I think they honestly thought they thought Deep Space Nine has such a linked storyline. Let's go for the opposite, and I think that was to its detriment. But I did like this episode. I like the B'Elanna stuff. I like the Janeway stuff. I like the Chakotay stuff. I think the whole Maquis Starfleet thing was by far the most interesting thing in this episode. I want to see more of it. So I'm not sure. I don't remember every episode until I watch it, But yeah, I very much hope we see that tension come up again. I'm not sure if it does, though.
I don't think it happens for another couple episodes.
Well, there's only 15 episodes in season 1, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Because Enterprise season 1's like 26 episodes.
I know that it is a season 1, season 2 over arc.
Yeah. Is there?
Yeah, because that...
Let's not get into the future.
Yeah.
Tell us what you thought about this episode. This is Ribbit 117. I am TrekTrav. Enjoy your night, day, or whatever the hell you are. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I hope we haven't descended too much into darkness.
It's his fault.
Someone acts a little cray.
No, I was excited to make the video, and he wasn't excited as much as me. And he was annoyed that I was excited.
Weird energy.
It's his own fault.